Okay, Assalamu alaikum everyone. So we're all here for our first Ramadan webinar. To get started, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد لا Oh, sorry. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. And so today we will have Sister Roman. She'll be speaking on about the journey of life. And Sister Roman is currently a YM alumni. She's also a member of Y Islam's National Shura. She completed her bachelor's degree in computer science from Rutgers University. She's also currently the mother of 3 children. So with that, we can go ahead and get started, Sister Roman.
Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Can you hear me properly, or is there something wrong with my microphone? Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, inshallah.
Okay, alhamdulillah. So, a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, bismillahir rahmanir rahim. So I've been given the topic of talking about the what happens after you die, until when you go to Jannah or Jahannam. So that whole timeline of events is what we're going to cover today, inshallah. So first, everyone should purify their intention why they're here. We're in the blessed month of Ramadan, and we want to increase our knowledge and reflect on these aspects of death and resurrection, so that we can come closer to Allah, right? So that's the intention that we have for having this talk, inshallah. So I want everyone to really purify their intention before we begin. Okay. So first and foremost, we're going to talk about the barzakh. And what is the barzakh? That is the actual that's the place of residence of when you pass after you pass away. So there's actually 4 different stations of a person's life. Number 1 is when we were created as souls by Allah, and we were in Jannah. And the second station of our life is when we were actually put in this dunya. And the third station of our life is the barzakh, which is after we pass away. And the fourth station would be Jannah or Jahannam. So right now we're all on this in our second station of our life. And our next upcoming station is the barzakh. And the barzakh, the technical meaning of the barzakh is a barrier. And it's a barrier between the real world and the deceased. So when a person dies, there's a whole there's so many descriptions on what happens when the angel comes down and pulls out the soul, and from the wicked soul to the righteous soul. But we're not going to cover that because of the lack of time. So we're going to actually cover what actually happens and the life in the barzakh after the pulling of the soul and all of that. So life in this barzakh will either be filled with delight, or it would be filled with terrors, anguish, and pain and horror. So may seem like a small dark hole. I mean, yeah, a small dark hole in the earth, but it's actually a means of having delight or torment. The Prophet ﷺ said, when any of you dies, he is shown his place morning and evening. If he is one of the people of Jannah, then he is one of the people of Jannah. And if he's one of the people of Jahannam, then he's one of the people of Jahannam. So what does this mean? So while we're laying in the grave, we're going to be shown our future destination from the window of our grave, morning and evening. And this station of our life, the barzakh, is it's like a dreamlike state. So although we may we may not have our faculties, our physical faculties, we will be able to feel things and experience things like we do in a dream. So if a person was not righteous, they will be given their torment in the grave. They will actually feel like the grave is crushing them. So may Allah protect us from that. The Prophet ﷺ said, I never saw, Aisha radiallahu anha said that the Prophet ﷺ, that she never saw the Prophet ﷺ pray any prayer that he sought the refuge with Allah from the torment of the grave. So that's how important it is to seek refuge from Allah from that. So the punishment of the grave is of two types. The first one is it could be a continuous punishment where someone who was a wrong, who did wrong in their world, their wrongdoing was so bad that Allah would continuously punish them in the grave until the day of judgment. Then there's a second type of punishment in the grave where it just lasts temporarily and then it stops. And maybe these are for the people who haven't sinned as much. So there are different types of and lengths of punishment in the barzakh. And also when a person dies and you make dua for them for Allah to increase and expand their grave, that is that is a reason for that, because the grave is meant to crush and torture the people who were not righteous in the world. So when you're making dua for a person who passes away, and that dua that for Allah to expand their grave with light and forgive their sins, is so that they don't experience that crushing of the grave. The Prophet ﷺ said that once humans are dead, rewards for them cease except for three things: sadaqah jariyah, which is a continuous charity. Examples of that would be like a water well, or knowledge, beneficial knowledge that's continuously teaching people, maybe a masjid that you build, stuff that's continuously benefiting people after you pass away. This can reach your grave and actually stop the punishment, if you were destined to have a punishment. So that sadaqah jariyah is one of them. The second thing is knowledge that still benefits people after they die. So let's say you write a book, or you do a halaqah that's recorded, or even doing a halaqah and then the person transcribes that halaqah to someone else, or writing a blog or something like that, where your knowledge will still benefit people after they die. That will also reach you in the barzakh to you, and would halt that punishment. And the third thing is good offspring, children that pray for you after you pass away. Their du'as reach you, and would stop that punishment as well. So Allah alam whether we will be saved from the punishment of the grave. So that's why we need to ensure that in case we do have these punishments in the grave, that we at least secured these three things that would halt us from experiencing that punishment. So once again, sadaqah jariyah, some sort of charity that is continuously giving, knowledge that benefits people, and children that make dua for you. And we all know that Surah Al-Mulk is also considered a way to protect you from that punishment of the grave. So this is the barzakh. This is the actual the station of us being in the grave. So now what happens next? So for righteous people, it may feel like really quick to be in the grave, but for the people who were not so righteous, it could feel like a long time in the grave. So Allahu alam how long it will actually feel. I guess it depends on the person. And as soon as that part of our station is over, the second part is the trumpet, the sur that will be blown. So Israfil, the angel Israfil, will be blowing the trumpet. That's what is narrated in the hadith. It's like a trumpet, and the sound would cause the entire everything on the heavens and the earth to shake with fear and pretty much die. And that is the apocalypse. Um, so this is the first blowing of the trumpet. So there's two blowings, and this is the first blowing. And actually, during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, the Prophet ﷺ said that Israfil had already started putting the trumpet to his lips. So it's literally a matter of time where this would happen. And when this would happen, people would either A, be alive in their graves, or B, A, be alive on earth, or B, in their graves. So as soon as this trumpet is blown, everyone who is alive will pass away, and every living creature will pass away, and everything that has been created by Allah will vanish. So according to Surah Zumar, verse 68, the trumpet will be sounded when all that there is in the heavens and on the earth will swoon, except such as it will please Allah to exempt them. Then there will be a second sound when, behold, they will be standing and looking on. So the first blowing of the trumpet, as I said, is the complete destruction of the earth and the heavens. And the second blowing of the trumpet will be where we will all be gathered together. So before I talk about the gathering, let me explain to you what the image of Yawm al-Qiyamah would be, which is the apocalypse. So the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever wants to see Yawm al-Qiyamah with his eyes, then they should read the verses of At-Takwir, Al-Infitar, and Al-Inshiqaq. These verses pretty much sum up the exact play-by-play of how exactly Yawm al-Qiyamah will seem or take place. So from Surah Takwir, إذا الشمس أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إذا الشمس كورت وإذا النجوم انكدرت وإذا الجبال سيرت وإذا العشار عطلت وإذا الوحوش حشرت وإذا البحار سجرت وإذا النفوس زوجت وإذا الموءودة سئلت بأي ذنب قتلت وإذا الصحف نشرت وإذا السماء كشطت وإذا الجحيم سعرت وإذا الجنة أزلفت علمت نفس ما أحضرت. So these verses, ayahs 1 to 14 in Surah Takwir, give you beautiful imagery of how Yawm al-Qiyamah will be. So it starts off how it says the sun will be wrapped up, like at-takwir means wrapped up. So it will be like completely gone. And the stars will fall, dispersing. Then the mountains will be removed. And then the full-term she-camels will be neglected, which means they were the most prized possessions of the Arabs at that time. And no one would neglect a full-term she-camel. They're ready to give birth, and they have that equals a lot of wealth for the Arabs. So it's like pretty much abandoning $1 million in the middle of the road. So no one will want money at that time or go after anything related to the dunya. When the wild beasts are gathered and when the seas are filled with flame, so the oceans and the seas will be boiling over with fire. When the souls are paired, so this وَإِذَا النُّفُوسُ زُوِّجَتْ, that is when the souls will be brought back into the bodies. And the second blowing of the trumpet, which will resurrect everyone, will take place. And then when the girl who was buried alive is asked for what sin was she killed, this is now the questioning. And this is alluding to what's going to take place after the Yawm al-Qiyamah, which is when Allah does the whole reckoning. And then when the pages are made public, that is when Allah brings to us our books, in our right or left hands. So it's alluding to that. And then when the hellfire is set ablaze, when the sky is stripped away, and when the hellfire is set ablaze, and when the paradise is brought near. So both Jannah and Jahannam will be brought close to us that day. That is also part of the Yawm al-Qiyamah. So Surah Inshiqaq and Infitar pretty much have the same ayat in the beginning. I'm not going to cover that because of the lack of time. But one thing that is different in Surah Infitar compared to Surah Takwir is that in Surah Infitar, Allah says, وَإِذَا الْقُبُورُ بُعْثِرَتْ, when the contents of the graves are scattered. So pretty much the earth will be, like, for lack of a better word, throwing up the graves, the bodies from within the earth. And that will be the second blowing of the trumpet. And then for Surah Inshiqaq, it's also pretty much the same thing. The description is the same. And so if anyone is really wants to feel how it will be on Yawm al-Qiyamah, the hadith says to read Al-Taqwir, Infitar, and Inshiqaq. So now going back to the descriptions of Yawm al-Qiyamah, this day people will be running. So after experiencing all of these signs of the moon and the sun and the mountains vanishing and the seas boiling over with flames, the people at that time who are still alive are going to be running around and trying to escape this torment, the torment of this day. It's actually supposed to be a very tormenting day for the people who are alive. So it's not a good thing that you're alive on this day. So they will. So in Surah Al-Qiyamah, actually, the man will say, "Where is the refuge? By no means, no place of safety before thy Lord. That day will be the place of rest." That's Surah Al-Qiyamah, verse 12. So they will be running around trying to find refuge. Surah Al-Hajj, verse 1 and 2. O mankind, fear your Lord, for the convulsion of the hour will be a thing terrible. That day you shall see every mother breastfeeding their child, and every pregnant woman will drop her load, meaning will give birth, and all the whole mankind will look as if they were drunk, but they are not drunk. And then Allah says, but dreadful will be the wrath of Allah. So this is the description of how the people will be in Yawm al-Qiyamah, that even the mothers will forget about their children. And the Prophet ﷺ said, there are the keys of the unseen are 5. No one knows about the hour, the knowledge of the hour, which means Yawm al-Qiyamah. No one knows about when rain will be sent down. No one knows what is inside the wombs. No soul will know what it will earn tomorrow, and no soul knows in what land it will die. So these are the keys of the 5 keys of the unseen that only Allah knows. And one of them is not knowing when Yawm al-Qiyamah is, and not knowing what land we will die. On the day of Yawm al-Qiyamah, also the Prophet ﷺ said that Allah will take the whole earth and fold the heaven in his right hand, and he will say, I am the king. Where are the kings of the earth? And this is Sahih Bukhari. However, if you are a righteous person and you're alive during Yawm al-Qiyamah, the Prophet ﷺ said, if the resurrection were established upon you while you had in your hand a sapling, which means you were in your backyard or something, planting a tree or planting a plant or something, then let him finish planting it. So that's the beauty of our religion, that even though like it's the end of the world, you still have to do that righteous act that you were involved in. And in this case, it was planting a tree or a plant. The Prophet ﷺ said, even if it comes upon you, finish planting that plant. So what kind of message is that sent to us? That despite like all of the fitna and craziness around us, we should not give up on doing righteous deeds till our last breath. You know that you're about to die because it's Yawm al-Qiyamah. All the destruction is around you and you're about to die. But even if it's finishing planting that seed, to get that extra deed on your weight of good deeds, you should force yourself to do it. And that's our deen. SubhanAllah. So it's such a beautiful lesson to take from. Okay, so then after Yom al-Qiyamah, we have the second blowing of the trumpet, which is the actual resurrection after death. So here, Israfil will, alayhi salam, will blow the trumpet again, and everyone under in the graves, as I mentioned in Surah in Fitar, that it will pretty much be scattered and thrown out. The earth will pretty much throw up all the people, and during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, they would question the Prophet ﷺ. How can how can Allah, who can give life to dry bones and decomposed ones? And then Allah says He will give them life who created them for the first time, for He is well versed in every kind of creation. Allah is the one who created us. He can definitely recreate us. Um, and then another verse in Surah Hajj, O mankind, if you have doubt about the resurrection, that we created you out of dust, then out of sperm, then out of a leech like clot, then out of a morsel of flesh, partly formed and partly unformed, in order that we may manifest our power to you, and we cause whom we will to rest in the wombs for an appointed term, then bring you out as babies, then foster you that you may reach your age of full strength and maturity. And then some of you are called to die, and some of you are sent back to being old age, so that they know nothing after they have known much. So Allah's pretty much telling us that how could you have doubt about the resurrection when I pretty much made you out of nothing and made you reach that old age, some of you. Um, so it's not something like unimaginable for Allah to resurrect us from the dead, which during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, and even now the atheists have the same argument that we cannot come back to life after we die. Um, so the stages of His first creation are mentioned in Surah Hajj to remind people that Allah made that miraculous creation out of nothing, and He can make the second creation after the hereafter, following your death, out of nothing too. So it's nothing to be shocked about. So then now the gathering will take place. So everyone is resurrected. So the next stage is the gathering. And Surah Al-Qamar, they will come forth, their eyes humbled from their graves, torpid like locusts, like moths scattered abroad, hastening with their eyes transfixed towards the caller. Hard is this day, the unbelievers will say. So they will come like groups of like moths. That's how it's mentioned in the Quran. So pretty much like we won't know where to go. Moths, if you've seen them, whenever they see light or anything, they're just fluttering around like crazy. And they're weak, and they could just one smack and they could fall to the ground. So the same thing with us. Allah describes us like them on that day. We'll just be fluttering around, not knowing what to do, where to go, and so weak and so miserable. So that is so we'll be called to the gathering place. And then the Prophet ﷺ says how we will be in the gathering place. It will be like a smooth, flat surface where we will be standing, and we will be standing naked, completely naked, barefoot, as described in the hadith, uncircumcised for the men, and faultless. I'm not sure what faultless means, but that's what is mentioned in the hadith. While men wait in the gathering place, the sun will approach. While we wait in the gathering place, the sun will approach us, and it will be so hot that the sweat would reach our ears. That day, men will be sent to the gathering place, and women, in 3 groups: on foot, riding, and crawling their face downwards. So these are how we would be divided according to the hadith. A person's deeds will determine their length of the standing, but all the people waiting will be barefoot, naked, and uncircumcised. It could feel like for the not righteous people, it could feel as if they were waiting 50,000 years. But for the pious people, it could be as little as the time it takes to pray 2 rak'ahs. So Allahu Alam how long this day of reckoning will be. And the people, while they're waiting, their hearts is described that their hearts will be beating like drums in their chests and their ears. And the parents will be running away from their children. The children will be running away from their parents. The spouses will be running away from each other, and the siblings will be running away from each other. Everyone will be gripped with fear, and they will just begin to question what their future situation is going to be like. There will be a group of people that will say, "Oh my Lord," in Surah 20, verse 125. "Oh my Lord, why have you raised me up blind while I had sight in the dunya?" Then Allah will say, "This is how it is. Our signs came to you, but you disregarded them, and because of that, this day you will be forgotten." The Prophet ﷺ informs us that on the day of judgment, that there will be that extreme heat, and sun, the blazing sun will be brought near to the people, that the sweat will reach the ears. So there will be some shade though, and this shade will be for 7 types of people. So I'm sure you've all heard of that hadith, that the 7 people are shaded on the day of Yawm al-Qiyamah, and it's reference to this because the sun will be brought so close to the people standing that it would be extremely, extremely unbearable. And the 7 people who will be under the shade from Allah, is number 1, a just leader. Number 2, a person whose heart is attached to the masjid. Number 3, a person who is raised to obey Allah. Number 4, 2 people who love each other solely for the sake of Allah. Number 5, a person whose name, when Allah's name is mentioned, they weep. Number 6, a person who gives charity secretly, and number 7, a person who was tempted to commit a sin with a member of the opposite gender, but resisted, saying that they feared Allah. So these are the 7 people that will be shaded on this day, where the sun will be extremely unbearably blazing hot. The people who are left standing on the great open plain, they will start to get uncomfortable, and they will begin to call out, "Where is Allah to judge us?" Like, they want the reckoning to start, because the situation they're in is so tormenting, they just want to get it over with. But little do they realize that what's coming next is probably going to be more tormenting. The Prophet ﷺ says that for those who love one another for my sake of my glory will be in the seats of light, and they will be envied by the prophets and martyrs on the day of judgment. That was also another shade for the seats of light, actually, for the people who love each other for the sake of Allah. So now Allah will come, and He will do the reckoning, and they will not be able to see Allah unless that is the greatest delight of a righteous person, to see Allah. So Allah will not reveal Himself, but He will be there to do the whole reckoning. And Allahu Alam in what way, we don't know. Maybe the light, the hijab, which is His light, and the nur, Allahu Alam, but He will not be there in His form, in the visible form that only the righteous people will be able to see in Jannatul Firdaus. So now the next part of the Yawm al-Qiyamah will be the receiving of the book of deeds. In Surah 99, verse 7 and 8, whoever does an atom's weight of good will see it, and whoever does an atom's weight of evil will see it. So now that verse will be manifested on this day. Surah Al-Isra, verse 13, every man's fate we have fastened on his own neck. On the day of judgment, we shall bring it out for him, a scroll, which he will see spread open. It will be said to him, read your record. Sufficient is thy soul this day to make out an account against thee. The book of deeds in which the good and bad deeds men did in this world are recorded, right? So on the day of reckoning, these books will be given either in your right hand for the Ashab al-Yamin, or in your left hand for the Ashab al-Shimal, the people who were wrong, who did wrong in the world. And this book pretty much is like, if you think of like a recording or a camera that like records everything you do, it doesn't leave a single detail of your life. So, for example, if you I don't know, like if you said something offensive to your mom, and you thought it was just no big deal, it would be recorded. So every little, or if you do something positive, let's say you pick up something from the floor that you thought someone might fall on, that will be recorded. So it doesn't leave a single minute detail. An atom's worth of good and an atom's worth of evil. And this is actually really scary, because that's why we're in Ramadan and we're begging Allah to forgive us, because sometimes we don't realize the wrong deeds that we do. And when we are on the Day of Judgment and we receive our book of deeds, we might be wondering why we have so many bad deeds. So, may Allah protect us. So that's why we have to constantly make dua for Allah to forgive us. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ made istighfar 100 times a day, because sometimes we just don't know how many bad deeds we're accumulating. We only see, oh, we did XYZ, which is a good deed. I did good things, but we don't realize the bad deeds we could be potentially doing. So, so after this reckoning, which will be a hard reckoning, Allah will take into account every detail, including the righteous people. He will pull them to the corner, the extremely righteous people. And in Surah Al-Haqqa, فَأُمُّ قُرَءُ كِتَابِيَهْ, here, read my record, take my book and read it. This person, this righteous person who is so happy that he got the book in his right hand, will be so happy, and he'll be bragging it to everyone around him that he got the book in his right hand. But if you read the tafsir of this ayah, the next ayah too, ha umuqra'u kitabiyah, Allah says that He will stop His servant on the Day of Judgment, and He will make his sins appear on the outside of His book of records. Then He will say to him, "Did you do this? Did you do this?" Meaning all the sins. Did you commit this sin? Did you commit this sin? And the person will respond, the righteous person, "Yes, my Lord, I did." Then Allah will say to him, "I will not expose you or dishonor you for it, for I have forgiven you." And then that person will be rejoicing, and then they will tell everyone, "Read my book, read my book." So it's actually the mercy of Allah that we would even receive it in our right hands, because Allah would have forgiven those sins that we did commit. And that's why we're asking Allah to forgive us, is so that on Yawm al-Qiyamah He will say, "I will not expose you for these sins because I have forgiven you." So, it's out of the mercy of Allah that we'd be receiving it in our right hand, if we do receive it in our right hand. So make dua for that these last 10 nights, that we receive this book of deeds in our right hand. And you all know that the two angels on our shoulders that are recording everything we do. So that's part of this book. Okay, the next thing would be the reckoning. So now Allah will make sure everything is sorted out. So after the men receive their books, Allah will start the reckoning in accordance with the records in those books. Nobody will be treated with injustice. That day, every soul will be requited for what it earned, and no injustice will there be that day, for Allah is swift into taking account. So what does it mean by reckoning? So now that you have received your report card, pretty much, you either will get rewarded for that or punished for that. So this is the reckoning. So Allah will decide what to do now after you receive this report about your life, pretty much. The Prophet ﷺ said that men will be questioned on the 5 things on the Day of Judgment: where they spent their life, where they spent their youth, where they earned their property, where they spent their property, whether they applied what they knew, what they learned or not, and the mizan, which is the scale of good deeds and bad deeds. That will also take place, the scales of good deeds and bad deeds. Now here is also where, if you offended someone or oppressed someone or took the rights away from someone, all of this will be sorted out here. So some of your good deeds will go to that person on their scales of judgment. If you don't seek their forgiveness, this is where all of that is sorted out. So whoever has wronged his brother or sister in the way of property or honor, let him go and repair it before it is taken away from him on the day of judgment, when he has no dirhams or dinars. And so some of the good deeds will be taken and given to the wronged one, and some of the evil deeds will be taken and cast upon him, according to Sahih Bukhari. So that's pretty scary. So if you have wronged someone, make sure you go and sort it out before the day of judgment, because then they will be able to steal your good deeds. Okay, then after this, the reckoning, there will be a pool, al-Kawthar. And this is that the Surah al-Kawthar, Inna a'tainaka al-Kawthar. This is the rivers of paradise that's been given to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the first person to reach this will be the Prophet ﷺ. And he will reach it, and those who will reach it and drink from it will never become thirsty again. It's stated in this hadith that it takes a month to walk it, and its water is whiter than milk, and its scent is sharper than musk. Its glasses are more than the stars in the sky. So the righteous people will be taken to this lake after I recognize them, the Prophet ﷺ, after I recognize them, they will be taken to this lake, and they will be taken away from me, whereupon I will say, my companions, then it will be said, you do not know what they innovated. Okay, so according to this hadith, there will be some people who the Prophet ﷺ will be wondering why they're being taken away from the Prophet ﷺ. Like the Prophet ﷺ wants to give them the water, but for some reason Allah is not allowing them to take the water. So it will be said to the Prophet ﷺ, you don't know all the things that they innovated after you passed away in the religion. So the ones who are committing the acts of bid'ah, the innovation, will not be able to drink from this al-Kawthar. And then the Sirat takes place, where the bridge to cross over Jahannam. So underneath will be Jahannam, and this bridge will be there to reach Jannah. And the Prophet ﷺ said, some of the believers will cross it like lightning speed. Some will cross it like wind, and some will be creeping slowly. And the unbelievers, some of them will not be forgiven their sins, and they'll end up fall into Jahannam. Not one of, in Surah Maryam, verse 71, not one of you will pass over it. This is that with thy Lord a decree which must be accomplished. But we shall save those who guarded against evil, and we shall leave the wrongdoers therein humbled to their knees. So this sirat is something we all have to cross, and it's the bridge stretching from Jahannam to Jannah. Then the last thing, or the second to last thing, is the shafa'ah, where Allah can allow the Prophet ﷺ to give shafa'ah to the people, intercession to the people who have committed wrongdoing. They would be allowed to come into Jannah. So this is the shafa'ah of the intercession that Allah will make, and it will allow the Prophet ﷺ to make, and also some righteous people to make. And no one will be able to intercede except those whom Allah wills. So some people who are destined for Jahannam will get this intercession. The Quran is also considered an intercession for you. So the more you recite Quran, the more you will be able to have that. And also fasting, I believe, is an intercession. So the last thing would be the A'raf. The A'raf is the purgatory, which is it's pretty much the buffer zone between Jannah and Jahannam. It's people who had deeds that are equally good and equally bad. So there's no destination for you. You could either go to Jannah or Jahannam. Your deeds are equal. So what do we do in this case? So in this case, Allah, out of His mercy, will allow them to enter Jannah. Out of His mercy, He will allow them to enter Jannah. it would be a tough time for them, because they would be really, they would see the people in Jahannam and they will see the people in Jannah, and they would be begging Allah to be in Jannah, and out of Allah's mercy He will allow them to enter Jannah. Allahu A'lam. So now quickly for the descriptions of Jahannam and Jannah, because of the lack of time. For Jahannam, the people who are in Jahannam, Surah Al-Kahf, Allah describes how Jahannam is. We have prepared a fire whose smoke and flames, like the walls and a roof for a tent, will be holding them in. If they and a roof of a tent will helm them in. If they implore relief, they will be granted water like melted brass that will scald their faces. How dreadful the drink, and how uncomfortable a couch to recline on. Then Allah describes how that hell is a place of torture where unbelievers will stay continuously, and some people will be just temporarily punished, and then they will be brought into Jannah. And then the descriptions of Jahannam are so many in the Hadith, but basically it's just an area of pain and anguish, torture, that cannot be compared to what's in this world, and may Allah protect us from that. Jannah in Surah Al-Baqarah, but give glad tidings to those who believe and work righteousness, that their portion is gardens beneath which rivers flow. Every time they are fed with fruits from them, they say, why this is what we were fed with before, meaning these are the fruits that we had in the earth, for they have been given things in similitude. It's similar to what we're going to be having on earth, that the fruits that we have on earth. However, it will be a million times more tastier and bigger and better and fresher. And they will have companions therein pure and holy, and they will abide therein forever. Paradise is a place in the hereafter which is adorned with various blessings, in which the believers will live eternally. It is a place whose the width is that of the heavens and the earth, and a place where neither excessive heat nor excessive cold is present. There are rivers of clean water, rivers of incorruptible milk, pure honey, fresh spring water with a scent of ginger, and a drink that leaves the scent of musk after drinking. And that's mentioned in Surah Mutaffifin. Paradise wine is also present, and it is a kind of drink that does not give you a headache or make you intoxicated. It gives joy to the drinkers, and it comes out of a snow white color spring. Salsabil. It does not tempt people to commit sins, and does not make people do things that are out of have that make you intoxicated. There are various fruits such as dates, pomegranates, grapevines, cedar trees without thorns, banana trees with fruits piled up one above another, and various birds to eat, various bird fleshes to eat. And this is mentioned Surah Al Imran, Surah Al Insan, Surah Muhammad, Surah Mutaffifin, Surah Safat, Surah Waqia, Surah At-Tur, and Surah Rahman, and Surah Naba. These surahs have beautiful descriptions of Jannah. Because of the lack of time, I can't go into detail. The clothes of the people of Jannah are of fine silk and heavy brocade. Their adornments are of gold. Their houses are beautiful. Immortal youths will be walking around to serve them. And these youths are said to be like scattered pearls because of their beauty. They will pass around dishes and goblets of gold. There will be all that the souls could desire and delight in. The mansions will be built one above another, in which rivers will flow. There will be companions for them reclining on shades of thrones. And then the people of paradise, who there won't be any kind of like bad ill feelings towards people in paradise that you kind of have on earth, in this dunya. That will all be taken away, and they will be sitting facing each other on thrones next to each other. There's no tiredness, there's no inconvenience for them, and they will not hear any vanity or lies. So it's beyond our imagination. There's so many details. That could be a different topic in and of itself. And but one hadith that really sums up Jannah in one, if you want to just say one line about Jannah, it would be this. The Prophet ﷺ said, I have prepared, Allah said to him, I have prepared for my righteous slaves such excellent things in Jannah that no eye has ever seen, no ear has ever heard, and no human heart can ever think of. And this pretty much sums up Jannah because it's completely unimaginable. And, it's something that we just, inshallah, have to wait and see. And then just to conclude, Allah says in Surah Qiyamah, some faces that day will beam with brightness and beauty, looking towards their Lord. This is the ultimate reward of Jannah, is being able to see Allah, because seeing Allah is just like only given to the selected few, and there's so much pleasure that comes out of it that we just can't understand um, in our limited knowledge. So to obtain this beautiful place of residence, we have to work and strive for it in this world. And we should not forget that paradise is obtained in this world. And to obtain Jannah, it is necessary to believe in the existence of Allah, His angels, His books, His prophets, the Day of Judgment, the decree and destiny to do good deeds in accordance with the Quran and Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and to live according to the Islamic ethic as best as possible. There's no other way to reach that, and there's no other way to attain Allah's mercy and avoid the punishments of the grave and the Yawm al-Qiyamah, other than following the Quran and the Sunnah. And these are the 10 days, the best days of the year, the best 10 nights of the year to really make dua for this. And don't forget that famous dua, Allahumma inni afuwan, Allahumma innaka afuwan tuhibbul afwa fa'fu anni. That, oh Allah, you love to forgive, so please forgive, because we don't know the bad deeds that are going to be listed in our book of deeds on the day of reckoning. So inshallah, with that, I'm going to conclude. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.